Thank you so much for allowing the Holocaust Center and Mr. Lowenstein to come and spend a little bit of time with you today. It was very nice, by the way, also for so many of you to wave and let me know that you remembered the last time I was here on campus. But today I have a very special occasion that we're going to be able to introduce to you Mr. Harry Lowenstein, who's going to tell you about his own personal and family experiences during the time of the Holocaust. I just want to set a little bit of the stage for you so that you can understand a little bit more about what you're hearing. Now, I know that many of you in here have read about people who experienced the Holocaust, and maybe you have seen some movies or videos as well. And Mr. Lowenstein was from Germany, so he experienced the time of the Holocaust right from the beginning of the time that the Nazi political movement and Adolf Hitler rose to power in Germany. Now that might be different from some of the other stories that you've heard. If you have heard about survivors from Poland or survivors from Eastern Europe or from Hungary, then they also experienced many of the things you're going to hear about, but from much later. So you're hearing a Holocaust survivor account from the very early days of the time that the Nazis became the leaders of Germany. But as you hear about the events, what I want to remind you and encourage you to do is remember that these things happen to real people. They happen to people who were parents and children and friends and classmates, and they disrupted and destroyed real lives. So always remember to put a name and a face and a story to the things that you're hearing about, because the last thing in the world we would want you to do is just think that this is only about the events. And so with that in mind, I want you to also think while you're listening about the kinds of questions that you would like to ask. But like Mr. Leftakus said, make sure that they are right on point and that they're respectful of the fact that this is a very personal story that's being told. And so I'm going to step out of the way and I'm going to introduce to you Mr. Harry Lowenstein.
Good afternoon, everyone. That the best you can do? Let's wake up.
Good afternoon.
That's better. Anyway, anybody here 7 years old? You are? Okay. Think age 7. I know you're all older than that. This all happened at age 7. 1938. When did Hitler come to power? Anybody know? Come on. Little history. What?
Early 1940s.
No. Oh, excuse me, I forgot. Anybody know when Hitler came to power? It's on. Okay. Well, subtract 5 years, 1933. And he wrote a book. Anybody know the title of it? Yes. Speak up so everybody else can hear. Okay. He used Mein Kampf as, that was his guiding light. So, in order to govern properly, somebody needs a scapegoat. So who did he use as a scapegoat? Yes. Speak up. Yes. Okay. So in 1938, what happened? They burnt 263, I believe, synagogues, the houses of worship. You think that's a nice thing? It hurts me every time when I see a house of worship burn. What else happened? How would you feel if I picked 3 children or 3 individuals out of this group and say, you have to go outside, you no longer can come to school? How would you feel? What? You would offend it. Okay, that's what happened. What have I done? I have not done anything. Therefore, one needs to go to school, and my parents had applied for us to go 60 miles away to a children's home. Unfortunately, by the time our request came, they were full already, and we had to go to another one, which was roughly 100 miles away. What else came down? To be identified, this, by the way, is original. How do I know this star is original? It was lined by my mother. I found it in the house when I returned. It was worn right here. It'll stay. And does everybody know what the inscription says? Yes, it's in German, but that's what it says. Anyway, we went to school in near Hanover, Germany, which was 100 kilometers away. My parents used to come and visit us individually. Why did they come individually? Anybody can guess? No? Yes.
They didn't want to attract attention?
I can hear you.
They didn't want to attract attention?
No. By coming individually, we had more visitation. Right? If they would come together, they would become once or maybe twice a year. This way they came more often and spent some time with your parents. This all went well till December of 41. In December of 41, we had notice, by the way, they had closed the school by then, and we returned to our houses and families. And in December of 41, they assembled us, put us on a train, and they sent us to a place called Riga, Latvia, to the ghetto. Anybody know where the word ghetto comes from? I know you've heard the word before. Ghetto is an Italian word meaning foundry. And there is one place in Venice, which one of the islands is called Ghetto, and it spells Ghetto. That's where it comes from. And why the ghetto? In 1492, I'm giving you a little bit of history now. As Jews were expelled from Portugal and Spain, and they traveled east and north, and they landed up in the islands of Venice. And the island of Ghetto was the least expensive area they could inhabit. And that's what happened, and it became a very Jewish area, and even actually I've been there today, this several years ago, and it is beautiful and very, very nice. And anyway, as we continue now, we are put on a train to Latvia and to Riga and into the ghetto. It's a train which took 3 days. They told you have to have enough food for 3 days. And we arrived in the ghetto, and they assigned us to houses or buildings and cramped. But normally it's for 4, they put 20 people in it. So sleeping was not exactly a great criteria, because you had to share beds with somebody else or sleep together with somebody you really didn't know, and so on. It was very, very cramped. Food was minimal. Instead of fish, we got fish heads. Bread was limited. This all went and every day there were orders of reporting, and however, prior to us coming to Riga, the SS and the Latvian police took 30,000 people out of the ghetto, took them to the forest, and exterminated them or shot them. This all happened in the 30,000 in 3 days. I have seen every kind of murder you possibly can create, from hanging to shooting to beating, drowning. I've seen it all. And I do not wish it on anybody. Anyway, we were 21 in the family when we deported, and I'm the only one who survived. So they're big. It's a big burden to carry. However, we're doing it quite well. Any questions so far? No? Okay, in the ghetto we went to school, and every other day they eliminated the subject till finally we did not have school any longer. What does a young kid do who has nothing to do? What would you do? Yeah, you.
I don't know, go outside or sleep.
Well, we found a soccer ball and we played soccer. And actually I became pretty good. However, in August of '43, I'm trying to expedite it a little bit because we're in a time constraint. My father and I were shipped from the ghetto to the concentration camp Kaiserwald. Unfortunately, my father became ill, lasted only 5 weeks there, was returned to the ghetto, and the ghetto was liquidated on the 13th of November 1943. And anybody know where they were shipped? I can't hear. Yes, they were shipped to Treblinka, which was one of them. And Treblinka has a notice that if you arrive by train, that within an hour you do not exist. Anyway, they had a selection process in the camp. I was still there, and we were about 80 children, about my age at the time, which 43, about 11, 12 years old. And I was lucky to survive it because we were 80, and afterwards, after the selection process, anybody can count, that's as many as we were, 5. One time I stole a piece of bread off a bunk from an individual. And my father said, "You do not steal from an individual. If you want to steal, steal from the masses." I would not recommend it. Well, I stole a piece of bread off a truck one time, and it was winter time, and they put a hose into my jacket, and we weren't well dressed as it was, and I was just about like an icicle. However, I survived it, and I can tell the story. The other piece of bread, my father made me return to where I picked it up, and after I returned, what do you think he did? Come on, you said it. He gave me one across the face. I feel today yet, and it made me a very honest man. Okay, we were in the camp. At first, I did recycling of the batteries. Anybody know what a battery looks like on the inside? You ever cut one open? No? Try it once, it's messy. Anyway, all the components had to be put in different places. So that shows you they were doing recycling long before we ever thought of it. I heard of a job opening at the garage, and cars was my love. I loved cars, and I still do like cars. So I got the job at the garage, and I polished cars, I cleaned parts, I did whatever they said, I did. Well, anyway, that saved my life, because they had another selection process, and it wasn't as tall as this, about that tall. They had tires stuck from the floor up to the ceiling. And I crawled into the tires. I stayed there for 3 days without any food, water, or anything else. After 3 days I came out, everything had simmered down, and life was not normal, but as normal as possible. And this all continued till September of 44. In September of 44, we were marched out of the concentration camp, put on a boat, and taken from Riga to Gdynia or Danzig. Anybody know where that is on the map? No? You ever heard of the Baltic Sea? No? Okay, let's stop it. If I would have a map, I would show you, but we don't. Anyway, they unloaded us in Gdynia or Danzig, whichever you want, where you want to pronounce it, put us on barges, took us to a new concentration camp, or another one, I should say, by the name of Stutthof. In Stutthof, I know my mother and sister were there. However, they did not survive Stutthof. And in January of 45, they marched us out of the camp, and the column must have been about 20,000 people marching towards Germany. And on the 9th of March, 1945, we heard rumbling that morning. Guess what that was?
Airplanes?
No, it was tanks. So by 9:05 in the morning, they overran us, and we were free. How would you feel being 14 years, not quite 14, and you are liberated? What's the first thing you look for?
I'll look for water.
I can hear you.
I'll look for water.
Water? Yeah, water is important. Well, I know there was no family around, so they were history already. Food. You're hungry. What's the difference between hungry coming home and you look at the refrigerator and you open it up and all you see is a glass of water?
I'll be pretty fast.
Okay, explain to me the difference between hungry and hunger. Think about it. Yes. Speak up.
Being hungry is just like a desire to have food, but hunger is actually like not having food.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Hungry is you want food, hunger is you need food.
Okay. Very, very important, nourishment. Because without nourishment, you can't exist. So what did I do? Coming from a farming community and a cool climate, I know that in the loft of the buildings, they have sausages and meats, which are smoked, dried meats, hanging, and which is delicious, but was a mistake to eat. Why was it a mistake? Okay, you, yeah. You have to speak up, I don't hear well. No, okay, you answer.
Because when you're hungry for a while, your belly shrinks, and if you eat too much food, it can make you sick.
You got the point. It was too rich a food to consume, and even now, that type of food is very, very rich and heavy. So what happened? The Russian army took us, all of us, gave us 2 blankets, bedded us down on straw in a schoolhouse, like all the way around the edge, and a place like this must have held a couple of 300. You didn't need a lot of space, you were small. And fed us oatmeal 3 times a day. We did that for 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, we regained our strength back, and they gave us permission to travel wherever we wanted to travel. Okay, I could not say I was German because they would have arrested me. So where did I come from? I came from Holland. They didn't know Dutch, neither do I. So that was a big cover-up. I mean, it's just something you have to do. So anyway, I did return home, found the star in our house. Somebody else was living there, and none of the things we had left were there any longer. And I stayed there for about 6-8 months, and then I went to a children's home. After the children's home, I could not get a visa to the United States. The only place I could get it was in France. So I stayed 15 months in France, got my visa to the United States. In those days, we didn't have airplanes yet which fly for civilians, and we came over by boat, which was slow boat, 13 days. Today you can do it in 5. And my first job was was slaughtering cattle. Why did I have that job? I didn't speak the language. I needed to go to school to learn the language. I went to night school for many years, and I also was earning a living. Once I had more experience with the language, I got a job in a butcher shop and worked there for 2-3 years. Then Mr. Truman, who was the president, said, "I want you." And I went into the army, served my 2 years, came back, and then I switched profession, and I went into the clothing business. And I worked in the clothing business till I closed my shop 19 years ago. I live in Kissimmee for 46 years, and we had a store there for 30. And unfortunately, my wife passed. I'm alone, and now we get questions.
What questions do you have for him? Go ahead and raise your hand.
Just spit it out. Yes,
How did you feel emotionally through all that?
you didn't have emotions. You cannot have emotions because the only thing you think about is you, me, and I alone.
Tough life.
Life is tough. You have to make it easy. Yes.
When did you serve in the military?
Where did you serve in the military?
I served in the army and I was stationed in France.
Did you kill anyone in here?
No. No, I was a tower operator to pull airplanes in and out. Anybody here? Okay.
Wait a minute. Why do you think it's important for survivors of the Holocaust to share this experience with the young people?
Wait, I didn't get what. I don't hear well. That's my problem.
Why
wants
do
to
you
know-
think it's important for survivors to share their experience with young people now?
If I don't tell you the past, you think it's a myth. It's a real thing which happened, and unfortunately, it's still happening. If you look into African countries, a lot of people are suppressed and prosecuted. Nobody. It's a pleasure to be in this country and living independently. You can say what you like. You can not like the person, but you can live with them. Very, very important. Yes.
I'm a civics teacher, and we are just doing forms of government, and one of the ones we do not cover is fascism. Can you explain that a little bit so the students understand what fascism is?
Well, fascism and socialism okay. Anybody ever heard of Karl Marx? Yes? Karl Marx wrote a good book or a theory on communism. Communism, socialism, and fascism, the only difference is they vary just a little bit. But let me say this. If you own a book, right? You own it. Under communism, that book is mine as much as yours. Even so, you purchased it. Whatever you own is owned by everybody else as well. There's no what you'd call, you do not own anything. Under fascism and socialism, you own it, but very minimally. Fascism is somebody rules and everybody listens. In our type of government, the president can say something, but he can't always do what he wants to do. He's limited. Did I?
It's a great answer. Thank you, sir.
Well, you have to give everyone their chance. Yes.
Why did you pick to say you were from Holland?
I can't hear.
Why did you pick Holland?
Why did I pick one?
Holland. Why did you pick it?
That was the closest thing I knew.
I think Amy had a question.
we still traumatized by the Holocaust today?
Well, yes or no. I know what's expected of me, and I know it. Do I dream about it? Yes. When I speak to you, I guarantee you for 3 nights I have dreams. But I see the importance of speaking to classes like yours to show that life wasn't always a dream. There's a lot of reality. When you see the first thing I saw, which was bad, was where they collected widows and widowers. Did I get it out right? Putting them into a moving van, and instead of having the exhaust go out, they pumped the exhaust into the van and drove off, and by the time they hit the destination, what do you think happened? They all were dead. So I mean, things like that happened on a daily basis.
We'll make this the last question because we're going to have to wrap up. Do you want to go ahead?
How was your school home? You said you lived in a school or something?
Yes.
Like you went to school and you stayed there?
Yes, we had housing and we had schooling, and everything else was quite normal. They fed us 3 times a day, and life wasn't bad. I have a friend who lives in Yonkers, New York, and we communicate. We are friends, but we are closer than brothers. We've been together since he was 10 and I was 7. So, yes.
Oh, so you guys were together for like more than 60. How long were you guys together?
Well, he's 90 and I'll be 88 next month. So figure it out.
Thanks for telling me.
I want to thank you all. First of all, Harry, thank you for sharing your story.
Well, this was very quick, and I jumped back and forth, but...
That's okay. That's okay. And I want to thank all of you for sitting and listening very respectfully and asking some really good questions. To introduce myself, my name is Lisa Bachman. I work for the Holocaust Center. And the question was asked, why is it important that we do this? And I just want to give you another very quick answer. When I look around this room, I see some really beautiful faces. Every single one of you. Really, you're smiling. You're really beautiful. And I see that you're different, right? Some of you have dark hair, some of you have light hair. You all have different colored skin. Some of you wear glasses, some of you don't. You're more alike than you realize. You all have hearts, and you all have the ability to make a choice every single day between being kind or being unkind. You know, I hear people using some really nasty words to describe people with different colored skin, or who have a different religion, or are different for any reason at all. And what I would like to leave you all with is that kindness will get you so much further than unkindness. Thank you.
I leave you with one word: respect each other.
right, guys, I just want to say the same thing. I appreciate your attention, your thoughtful questions, and I would echo the same thing. You know, this whole week, what we're talking about is we all come from different backgrounds. We have different religions. We have different personal beliefs. We feel differently about different things, and that's got to be okay. And there should never be a point where somebody doesn't feel like they can come to school because they're different than somebody else. And the challenge I will leave you all with is respect is extremely important. But how are you going to stand up for a fellow Maitland Middle School student? We see this stuff happen all the time in the courtyard, in lunch, on social media. You see it. You can all in your head right now go, I saw this today. I heard this today. I read this today. At what point do we look at our friends and say enough is enough? I don't want to be your friend if this is how you're going to behave. I don't want to sit with you at lunch if this is how you're going to behave. I'm not asking you to be mean to anybody, but there comes a point to say we don't do this here. And every single one of you is a leader in your own right and has a social group in your own right. I can't make you do it. I can't make you want to do it. But I think as we as a society and we as a school and we as a community, there comes a point where the change has to start with us. And the change has to start with how we interact with each other. So I hope you really walk away with something from this. I hope you go home and talk to your parents about this. I hope you go home and talk to your siblings about this. And I hope you want to change something in your own lives about this. We are going to post it on the Canvas page, on the Media Center Canvas page. So if you want to revisit it, if you want to watch it again, if somebody didn't catch it and you say, hey, well, guess what? This is where it's posted. Let's go watch it together, or let's talk about it, But I would encourage all of you to do that. And I would encourage you to, again, continue to have conversations with each other and say, how do we want this school to look? What do we want this school to look like? So I just want to say thank you again for your time, for your attention, for the respect you gave our guests and our guests that are here. We will go ahead and do an all call to say you guys are coming back to class. So just walk calmly to wherever it is you are going and just say, I was in the media center, Mr. Latekis, maybe all call about me. Okay? Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.